David left his old town before sunrise, driving with the windows slightly open, letting the cold air hit his face as if it could wash away every memory he wanted to forget. The long road ahead was quiet, and the sky still had the faint colors of night. His phone sat on the seat beside him, silent from the moment he turned the key and pulled away from the house he once called home. He kept glancing at it out of habit, waiting for something, maybe a message from his mother, or a confused call from his sister, or even a short good luck from his father. But it stayed dark, a cold reminder that for years he had been the only one holding his family together. While they let everything crack, he told himself he wasn't running. He simply needed peace, needed a place where he wasn't always the one fixing arguments, apologizing for things he didn't do, breaking the tension between relatives who never cared about meeting him halfway. He had spent years waiting for someone in his family to see him, really see him, but their eyes were always on each other, on old grudges, on pride. So he packed his bags, grabbed the little savings he had, left with a quiet goodbye that no one listened to. The new house sat on a soft green hill 3 hours away. It wasn't big, but it was clean, modern, and filled with the kind of silence that didn't make him feel small. When he stepped inside, he didn't feel the weight of old arguments pressing on his chest. He didn't feel his mother's disappointed sighs or his father's heavy silence. The empty rooms felt like freedom. He walked through each one slowly, letting his hands touch the smooth walls, imagining what life could be like. He didn't spend all his energy trying to earn love. That should have been freely given. He set his bags down, opened the windows to let the warm light in, and took a long breath. He expected to feel relief, but instead he felt something odd, something like a deep loneliness rising from a place he had ignored for too long. He stood by the living room window and stared at the rolling field in front of the house. He wanted to call someone just to say he made it. He was safe. He was okay. But who would care enough to answer? He placed his phone on the counter and made tea, forcing himself to listen to the birds outside instead of the heavy silence inside. Hours passed as he unpacked, wiped the windows, arranged the kitchen shelves, and opened old boxes filled with memories he wasn't sure he wanted to revisit. A few times he opened his phone again and again, scrolling through old messages with his family, noticing the long breaks in conversations, the half-hearted replies, the moments where he tried to reach out but they didn't meet him halfway. He told himself to ignore it. He had chosen this new start. He had moved away because he wanted to be free, but freedom did not feel as warm as he imagined. One afternoon, while arranging books in the living room, he heard a soft knock on the door. When he opened it, he saw a girl a little younger than him standing on the porch with a sketchbook under her arm. Her hair was tied into a loose ponytail, and she wore a cozy sweater that made her look like a soft piece of sunlight in the quiet afternoon. "You're new here, right?" she asked with a warm smile. "Yes, just moved in yesterday," he answered. "I'm Sophia," she said. "I live 2 houses down. I walk around the hill every afternoon, and I saw you carrying boxes yesterday. Welcome to the neighborhood." He didn't expect kindness so quickly. He didn't expect someone to notice him without him having to fight for attention. They talked for a few minutes, simple small talk, nothing heavy. She asked where he came from, why he chose this hill, and whether he liked tea or coffee. She had an easy way of speaking, like every word was gentle. When she waved goodbye and walked away, David realized he felt a little lighter. The next evening she came again, knocking softly as if not to disturb anything fragile inside the house. "Tea?" she asked with a little smile, holding 2 cups. He laughed. "Always." They sat on the porch steps, watching the orange sky fade into soft pink. She told him about her art classes and how she struggled with painting faces. He told her about his job and how he loved quiet places more than noisy cities. Their conversations flowed with surprising ease, as if they had known each other for years. Something soft grew between them, nothing fast, nothing loud. Just a gentle warmth forming in the spaces between their words. But at night, when the lights were off and the house grew still, the loneliness returned. David found himself checking his phone again, wondering if maybe someone from home had messaged him while he wasn't looking. But every night, the screen showed the same thing, nothing. Days passed. and Sophia's presence became the brightest part of his new life. She would wave from the road when walking her dog. She would stop by in the evenings to share stories or complain about burnt toast. She had a way of laughing that made him forget how heavy his heart felt each morning. Sometimes they sat close, almost touching shoulders, and he wondered if she felt the same warmth he did. He didn't rush anything. He didn't want to break the fragile peace he had finally found. Still, the silence from his family ate at him. He knew they weren't perfect. He knew they weren't always kind. But he never imagined they would let him disappear from their lives without a single message. He had been the quiet one, the one who stayed out of fights, the one who helped whenever they needed anything. He thought that counted for something. One evening, after Sophia left with a tired goodnight, he sat alone in the living room with his laptop open. He remembered that he still had access to the security cameras in his old house, the ones he installed to keep the place safe while he prepared to rent it out. He hadn't checked them in weeks. He didn't expect anything. Maybe a cat running across the porch or a delivery truck passing. The screen loaded slowly. He clicked through the old camera feed without much interest. Then he stopped. A red notification blinked at the top corner. Motion detected old resident's front door. He frowned and clicked the video. The feed opened with a grainy image of his old porch. At first he thought it was just strangers or kids passing by. But then the shapes became clear, and he froze so hard he forgot to breathe. 3 people stood at his old front door. His mother, his father, his younger brother. But they didn't look like themselves. His mother's hair was messy and half falling out of her bun. His father, usually so proud and stiff, had his head lowered like he was afraid of being seen. His brother looked pale, exhausted, almost broken. They weren't knocking normally. They weren't waiting calmly. They were shaking. His mother leaned her forehead against the door as if she were begging someone inside to open it. He pressed the volume key, and suddenly the soft quiet of his house filled with the sound of crying. His mother's voice was cracked. His brother kept saying something he couldn't hear clearly. His father, the man who always spoke like he had no weakness, whispered, "Please, please open. We need to see you." David felt his chest tighten like someone had grabbed his ribs with both hands. He leaned closer, gripping the laptop so hard his fingers trembled. He didn't know what happened. He didn't know why they were there, why they looked broken, why they sounded desperate. He had left because they didn't care. He had left because they pushed him away. He had left because he thought they wouldn't miss him. But now, watching them cry outside a house that no longer belonged to him, he felt the ground tilt beneath him. What changed? Why were they begging? What could have happened? His mother lifted her face, tears streaking down her cheeks, and whispered something that made his entire body go cold. "David, please come home. Please, we're sorry." He stared at the screen, unable to blink. In that moment, one quiet word slipped through his lips, heavy and full of fear. Why? And he knew everything about his new quiet life was about to change. David didn't sleep that night. He sat on the couch with the laptop glowing in the dark, replaying the footage again and again. Each time his chest tightened more. His mother's trembling hands, his father's lowered head. His brother's cracked voice. They didn't match the cold, distant family he had walked away from. Something had happened. Something big enough to break every wall they used to hide behind. He wanted to call them right away. But his hands shook so much that he dropped his phone twice. Every part of him screamed to get in his car and drive back. But fear held him in place, fear that whatever waited for him back there would tear open. Every wound he had just started to heal. By sunrise, he still hadn't decided what to do. He stood on the porch, watching the sky turn gold, trying to breathe through the storm inside his chest. His new life was supposed to be peaceful, simple, quiet. Yet now it felt like the ground beneath it was cracking. Sophia's footsteps on the gravel pulled him back. She walked toward him with her hair tied loosely, holding a warm cup in both hands. She looked at his tired eyes and stopped. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "Not really." She handed him the cup. "Tea, stronger than yesterday." He tried to smile, but it came out weak. Sophia stepped closer, studying him with worried eyes. Something happened, didn't it? He hesitated. He didn't want to pull her into his family problems. He didn't want to let go of the small peace she brought him. But the truth pressed against his lips until he couldn't hold it back. I saw something on my old security cameras, he whispered. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. What did you see? My family, he said. They were at my old house, crying, begging. They looked broken. Sophia placed her cup down and sat on the porch step, quietly asking him to join her. He did, staring at his shaking hands. What do you think happened? She asked gently. I don't know, he said, and I'm scared to find out. She didn't speak for a while. She simply rested her hand near his, not touching him, just close enough to remind him he wasn't alone. He felt the warmth between them again, steady and grounding. Whatever it is, she said softly, you don't have to face it alone. Her words hit him in a place he had kept locked for years. But even her calm voice couldn't stop the fear growing in his chest. Later that day, after pacing the living room until it made him dizzy, he finally grabbed his keys. He told himself he was just going to see, just going to understand what was happening. Sophia watched him from the walkway, her arms folded, her eyes full of concern. Text me when you get there, she said. I will, he promised. Though he wasn't sure he'd be strong enough to keep his word. The drive back to his old town felt heavier than the drive he took when leaving it. The roads looked familiar, yet every turn felt sharp, every memory sharper. He passed the park where he used to sit alone on bad days, the store where he worked long shifts, the old school that still carried whispers of painful years. His chest tightened with each mile. His old house came into view and his heart thudded loudly. There were no cars in the driveway. No people on the porch. The silence around it was heavy. He parked across the street and stepped out slowly. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, a dog barking in the distance, a passing car made him flinch. He walked to the porch and looked at the door his family had cried against. The night before, then he noticed something. A folded piece of paper was wedged between the door handle and the frame. His name was written on it. He froze. His breath grew thin. With trembling fingers, he pulled the note out and opened it. The handwriting was messy, rushed. His mother's. David, we didn't know where else to go. Something terrible has happened. Please come. Please, we need you. We are staying at Aunt Marla's. Mom. His stomach twisted. His aunt lived 2 towns away, quiet, almost unreachable. For his family to hide there meant something serious, maybe dangerous, had happened. His father would never go to that place unless every other option collapsed. He folded the note and pressed it against his forehead, trying to breathe. A sudden voice behind him made him jump, looking for someone. He turned sharply. It was Mrs. Hart, the neighbor who lived across the street. An older woman, always wearing the same knitted cardigan. Always watching everything from behind her curtains. Your family was here, she said, before he even asked. They looked terrible. Your mother could barely stand. They waited for hours. Tivit swallowed hard. Did they say anything? Mrs. Hart's face softened. Just that they needed to find you. Your brother kept checking his phone like he was waiting for your call. Guilt stabbed through him, even though he wasn't the one who abandoned anyone. But seeing his family broken, hearing that they waited for him, tore at every layer he had built around his heart. Do you know why they were here? He asked. Mrs. Hart hesitated, lowering her voice. I heard something. About trouble with someone they owed money to. Something about threats. But I don't know details. David felt the world tilt. His father had always been stubborn, too proud to admit mistakes. But debts, threats, that was something else entirely. He thanked her and left quickly, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. The moment he drove away, his phone buzzed. It was Sophia. Are you okay? He stared at the message and wanted to say yes. He wanted to be strong, calm, steady. But he couldn't lie no, but I'm trying. He put his phone away and kept driving. The road to his aunt's house was long and twisted, surrounded by tall trees that made the sky disappear. Each mile stretched like a test of patience, courage, fear. When he finally reached the small house at the end of the road, his heart felt like it might stop. He parked outside and stepped onto the gravel path. The house was quiet, the curtains drawn tight. He knocked once. No answer. He knocked again, louder dot, then he heard soft footsteps behind the door. It opened a few inches. Okay. And his younger brother, Ethan, peered out. His eyes were swollen, his face pale. When Ethan recognized him, tears spilled instantly. He pulled the door open and wrapped his arms around David so tightly it stole his breath. "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered, choking on his words. "I'm so sorry. We didn't know what to do." David froze for a moment before hugging him back, feeling the tremble in his brother's body. "What happened?" David asked softly. Ethan stepped back and wiped his eyes. "You should come inside." David walked into this small house feeling a strange mix of dread and hope. His mother sat at the kitchen table, her face buried in her hands. His father stood near the window, staring outside as if expecting someone to burst in. When they saw David, everything stopped. His mother rushed to him, crying as she held his face in her hands. His father looked away, unable to meet his eyes. "We didn't want to drag you into this," his mother whispered. But everything fell apart. David took a breath. "Tell me." His father finally spoke, his voice lower than David had ever heard it. "We made some mistakes. Financial ones. Someone we owed money to started threatening us. They said they knew where you lived. Said they'd come after you if we didn't pay." David's blood ran cold. "Me," his mother sobbed. "We tried to protect you. That's why we didn't reach out. But then they came to our house. They broke things. They said horrible things. We had to leave. We went to your old house because we hoped you were still there. We were desperate." David felt his knees weaken. All this time he thought they didn't care, yet they had been trying to shield him from danger he didn't even know existed. "Why didn't you call me?" he whispered. "We didn't want them tracing anything," Ethan said. "We destroyed our phones. We ran." David looked at the shaking family in front of him, and suddenly all the anger he had held for years felt small. They weren't perfect. They had hurt him. But now they were broken, scared, and reaching for him like he was the only safe place left. He took a deep breath. "You're safe now. I'm here." His mother fell into his arms, crying harder. His father finally faced him, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're sorry. Son, David didn't know what the future held, or how dangerous the situation truly was. But one thing was clear: the life he had built, the peace he had found. The gentle bond with Sophia was now tangled with a fear he had never expected, and deep down sensed this was only the beginning. David stayed with his family in the small, dim house for hours, asking questions, trying to understand everything they had been hiding. The more they told him, the heavier his chest grew. His father explained how a business deal had collapsed, how he borrowed money from the wrong people, how promises turned into threats. His mother admitted they had been living in fear for weeks. Ethan said they planned to run farther, but they didn't have the strength, the courage, or the money. "We were scared they would find you before we could warn you," Ethan whispered. "That's why we went to your old house. We didn't know where else to look." David listened quietly. Part of him felt pain from the years of feeling ignored, but another part ached at seeing them so frightened. His mother's hands trembled every time she tried to hold a glass. His father looked smaller than he ever remembered, like the weight of the entire world had crushed his pride. He wasn't the strict man David had feared growing up. He was just a tired human who made mistakes at some point. David stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the sun was setting behind the trees, turning the sky into a mix of gold and deep red. He didn't know how he would help them. He didn't know if he could fix everything. But he knew he couldn't leave them alone. He couldn't pretend he didn't see the fear in their eyes. When he turned back, his mother's gaze met his with a fragile desperation. "Please don't leave us," she whispered. He sat beside her and held her shaking hands. "I'm not going anywhere." His father cleared his throat, his voice rough. "You shouldn't stay, David. We brought danger with us. If they find out you're here, then we'll deal with it together, David said firmly. His father looked away, ashamed. You don't understand what these people can do. I don't care, David answered. I'm not losing my family to fear. Silence filled the room. Not the cold, empty silence David had grown used to, but a heavy, emotional one. It felt like the beginning of something uncertain, something dangerous, but also something that held a chance for healing. After a long moment, Ethan asked quietly, "What do we do now?" David let out a deep breath. "First, you come with me. My place is far from here. Safer, no one knows you're there." His father hesitated. "We don't want to ruin your new life." "You're my family," David said. "And my new life means nothing if I'm worrying about whether you're alive." His mother's eyes filled with tears. Ethan nodded slowly. His father finally stepped forward and placed a hand on David's shoulder one of the few times he had ever shown affection like that. "Thank you," he said softly. David helped them pack what little they brought. His mother folded clothes with shaky hands. Ethan grabbed 2 backpacks. His father made sure the windows were locked, glancing outside every few seconds like he expected danger to appear at any moment. They walked to David's car quietly, the night air cold against their skin. When they drove away from the small house, the road curving through dark trees, David felt a strange mix of fear and determination settle inside him. Halfway to his house, he messaged Sophia, "I'm bringing my family with me. I'll explain later. Please stay inside." Her reply came quick. "I'm here if you need anything. Just be safe." Her words gave him strength he didn't know he needed. When they reached his home on the hill, the lights in the neighborhood were soft and warm. Sophia's house had a faint glow from the living room window, and David felt a sudden rush of comfort knowing she was close. He helped his mother out of the car, guided Ethan inside, and watched his father take slow steps up the porch as if each one weighed 100 pounds. Inside, David gave them blankets, water, and space to breathe. His mother kept whispering thank you under her breath. Ethan looked around as if trying to understand how David had created such a peaceful place for himself. His father sat on the couch staring at the floor, unable to look at anyone. After they settled, David stepped outside to clear his head. The night sky stretched wide above him, filled with stars. For a moment, he let the cold air touch his face, hoping it would calm the storm inside him. He didn't hear Sophia approach until she spoke softly from behind. "You're home." He turned and found her wrapped in a long cardigan, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked at him with quiet concern, and something inside him softened. "I didn't expect you to come out," he said. "I saw your car lights." She stepped closer. "You look like you're carrying the whole world." David exhaled. "I feel like it. Do you want to talk?" she asked gently. He nodded. They walked a few steps away from the house, standing under the old tree near the fence. He told her everything: his family's troubles, the threats, the fear, the note, the danger. As he spoke, Sophia didn't interrupt. She didn't ask unnecessary questions. She simply listened, her eyes soft, her expression full of empathy. When he finished, she touched his arm lightly. "You did the right thing bringing them here. You're not alone in this." Her touch was warm, steady, grounding. He looked at her, really looked at her, and felt a deep pull toward hers, something gentle, something dangerous, something he had been trying not to feel too soon. "Thank you," he whispered. "You don't have to thank me," she said softly. "I care about you." Her words made his heart skip. He wanted to pull her close, to rest his forehead against hers, to let her warmth melt some of the fear inside him. But he held himself back, not wanting to rush something so delicate. When they walked back toward the house, the porch light cast a soft glow over them. Before she left, she looked at him one more time. "If you need anything tonight, anything, just knock." She said, "I will," he promised. Back inside, his family tried to rest, though sleep seemed impossible. David prepared a small space for each of them. Ethan fell asleep curled under a blanket. His mother finally lay down after drinking warm tea. His father stayed awake on the couch, staring at the window with troubled eyes. David sat beside him quietly. "Did they hurt you?" he asked. His father shook his head. "Not yet, but they said they would. And they don't make empty threats. We'll figure this out," David said firmly. His father looked at him with something like regret, guilt, and pride mixed together. "You left because of us, because we failed you, and now we've dragged you back into this." David took a slow breath. "I left because I needed peace. But that doesn't mean I stopped loving you." His father blinked rapidly, looking away. "I'm sorry, son, for everything." For a moment, David didn't know what to say. Then he placed his hand on his father's shoulder, offering something he wished he had received years ago. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You're here now. That's what matters." They sat in silence, the air thick with emotions they had never spoken before. Slowly, his father leaned back and let his eyes close. For the first time, David saw him not as the strong, unshakable figure he grew up with, but as a man who had broken under his own mistakes. Hours passed. The house finally fell quiet. David lay on the floor near his family, unable to sleep, listening to every sound outside. He kept replaying the threats in his head, wondering how far those men would go, wondering if they would find this place. Fear crawled through him like a shadow, just as he began to drift into a restless sleep. A soft vibration buzzed against his pocket. His phone. A message. From an unknown number. "We know where you are. You can't hide them." His heart jumped so hard he sat up immediately. His breath grew fast, his throat tight. He stared at the message, numb and cold. Then another message appeared. "If you don't pay, we'll come tonight." David felt the world tilt. His body trembled. He looked at his sleeping family, exhausted, fragile, unaware of the danger inching closer. Then he looked at the window, the shadows outside stretching like dark hands. He stood slowly, chest pounding, and whispered one thing into the dark room. No, not tonight, 'cause he knew what he had to do now. He had to protect them, whatever it took, even if it meant facing the danger alone.